3D printing settings for Cura.
So straight away, depending on what level of complexity the model is at, for this one here is not too complex. I just use a layer height of 0.2. This one though, however, that's, you know, a little bit more complex, I probably drop this down to a 0.16. It slows down the printing a little bit, but with a more complex model, it definitely brings the details back out. The next thing I'll look to change, if we go down to walls, the Z alignment, the Z seam alignment. So if you go to preferences in Cura, open up settings, and then scroll down a little bit to where it says walls, or Z alignment and Z alignment position, you tick both of those if you don't see it in there. And I put mine to random because then you don't end up with a single seam. The bottom thickness, currently got that set to 0.68 is the standard, I believe. I haven't changed anything with the bottom or top. The top layers, however, do sometimes change depending on the model, so you want to check. If you're downloading a model from one of the repositories online, it might be worth just seeing what some of the comments have to say. Now the infill, it will depend on the model again, and the speed in which you really want to print it. So for myself, for some of the majority of the models that I'll do it between 10 and 20%, depending on how strong I need it to be. If it's something that is going to be supporting weight, or has a moving part, or just needs a little bit of extra durability, then I will increase this ever so slightly, maybe up to like a 50%, for example. But it all depends again on the model and what you're going to be using it for. The infill pattern itself, I really like gyroid just because it looks cool when it's printing, and especially on time lapses, but it does increase print time slightly depending on the internal structure is, again, whether there's going to be load bearing, if there's weak points, you want to fill that with an infill pattern that might give it a little bit of extra durability. So my printing temperature, so this is something that's very dependent on your printer itself. I found that the printing temperature that yields the best results for me is 210 degrees with a build plate temperature of 65. That's really where I get some of the best adhesion. So depending on the filament as well, so some PLA does need to be printed at 210, 215, 205. It really varies, but I tend to keep it between 210, 215. The build plate temperature again is also depending on whether or not I've serviced the machine, if it's been cleaned. Some of the adhesion on some of the PLAs and TPU that I have is slightly different, so I'll range that between 60 and 70 degrees. Probably not going up to the 70, maybe about 68. The speed, so my speed for my Ender 3 S1 Pro I have currently set at 60. However, when I do need to drop that down, I can just manually do that from the printer screen itself. And if it's struggling with adhesion, so I'm struggling to get that first layer down, I might drop that down to like a 50%, just on that first couple of layers at least. On the Ender 3 S1 Pro as well, so you've got the retraction enabled. So the retraction distance that I have currently is 0.8 mil, and the retraction speed is 45 mil per second. Here you can see a couple of cooling settings. The only one I've really changed, I believe, is this regular fan speed at height. So currently it's set to 0.8. I just found that it was giving me a little bit better results. You can generate supports from in here if you want to generate supports. It's again obviously model dependent. The build plate adhesion, so I tend to use skirt or brim. Now if there's something that really is small and it won't adhere properly, I will create a raft just to stop it from, you know, jumping around, or if there's a couple of blobs here or there that the printhead might have caught on. It can save you from time to time. I do like them. But if it's a small round piece, I'll more than likely use a brim. If there's not too much adhering to the bed, I'll go brim or raft. But otherwise, just to purge and get and prime that nozzle, I'll be using a skirt. A good example of this is candle holder here. So if we slice this very quickly, we'll go to preview. When we go back down to like layer 1, you can see there's really not a lot there, making that like stick to the bed. So with this sort of thing, I was printing a raft. However, because this second model has got a base to it, I was only really going to do a skirt on this one. And then if you have dual extrusion, your settings will be in there. The special mode, so if you wanted to print in vase mode, then you have this spiralized outer contour. You would just tick that, and then as long as those two are ticked, you'd then be printing in vase mode. And your experimentals, which I haven't really touched yet. So they're the settings really that I use. A lot of it again is model dependent, printer dependent, day dependent. You know, on a Tuesday I might be printing fine, on a Wednesday morning it just might all not want to work. And that's the life of 3D printing. Hopefully this has been helpful. If you have any questions, make sure you leave a comment and I'll try and answer them. Or feel free to drop into the DMs.